Let us read from 2 Kings chapter 16, verses 1 to 9. In the 17th year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, Ahaz the son of Jotham, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord his God, as his father David had done, but he walked in the way of the kings of Israel. He even burned his son as an offering, according to the despicable practices of the nations, whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. And he sacrificed and made offerings on the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. Then Rezin, king of Syria, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, came up to wage war on Jerusalem, and they besieged Ahaz, but could not conquer him. At that time, Rezin, the king of Syria, recovered Elath for Syria, and drove the men of Judah from Elath, and the Edomites came to Elath, where they dwell to this day. So Ahaz sent messengers to Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, saying, I am your servant and your son. Come up and rescue me from the hand of the king of Syria and from the hand of the king of Israel, who are attacking me. Ahaz also took the silver and gold that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasures of the king's house, and sent a present to the king of Assyria. And the king of Assyria listened to him. The king of Assyria marched up against Damascus and took it, carrying its people captive to Kir, and he killed Rezin. King Ahaz, one of the most infamous rulers of Judah, remains a sobering example of what happens when a man walks by sight rather than faith. His reign, during which Isaiah prophesied, was marked by profound idolatry and moral decay. The scriptures testify that his father Jotham became mighty because he ordered his ways before the Lord his God. Ahaz, however, chose a different path, one of self-reliance and spiritual rebellion. From the outset, Ahaz immersed himself in the detestable practices of the pagan nations. He abandoned the worship of the true God, indulging instead in the idolatry of the kings of Israel. He offered sacrifices on high places, hills, and under green trees, forsaking the temple of God for the allure of pagan rituals. Most horrifyingly, he burned his own son as an offering, mimicking the depraved practices of the nations that God had driven out before Israel. This act epitomized his spiritual blindness, a man shaped by the lifeless idols he revered. Scripture says in Psalms 115 verse 8, those who make them become like them, so do all who trust in them. During his reign, Judah was under threat from both Syria and Samaria. Rezin, king of Syria, defeated Ahaz and carried away captives to Damascus. Simultaneously, the king of Israel inflicted heavy losses on Judah. Yet Ahaz remained unrepentant. Instead of turning to the God of his forefathers, the God who had been Judah's shield and deliverer, he sought refuge in the might of a pagan empire. Ahaz turned to Assyria, offering himself as a servant and son to Tiglath-Pileser, its king. Despite Ahaz's rebellion, God extended grace to him through the prophet Isaiah. In this moment of national crisis, Isaiah proclaimed in Isaiah chapter 7 verse 7 to 9, it shall not stand, and it shall not come to pass. For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years, Ephraim will be shattered from being a people. If you are not firm in faith, you will not be firm at all. Isaiah's message was clear. The coalition of Syria and Israel posed no ultimate threat to Judah. God, not Assyria, was Judah's defender. To strengthen Ahaz's wavering heart, Isaiah invited him to ask for a sign, a divine confirmation of God's promise. But Ahaz refused, saying, "I will not ask, and I will not put the Lord to the test." His words may have sounded pious, but they masked his stubborn unbelief. Isaiah underlined this when he himself announced a sign. "Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." Isaiah 7:14. This prophecy underscored the presence of God among his people. Yet Ahaz dismissed this assurance. Clinging to his strategy, he stripped the temple of its gold and silver to secure Assyria's aid. When Assyria defeated Syria, Ahaz likely saw this as a validation of his choice. However, Ahaz failed to recognize the cost of forsaking the Almighty. His pragmatism led him further into spiritual ruin. When he traveled to Damascus to meet Tiglath-Pileser, he was captivated by a pagan altar he saw there. Forsaking the divinely revealed pattern, Ahaz imported this human invention to Jerusalem. He ordered a replica to be built in the temple of God, replacing the one built by Solomon. By doing so, he defiled the sanctuary and led his people deeper into apostasy. Ahaz's short-sighted decisions stemmed from his refusal to trust God. His alliance with Assyria brought temporary relief, but ultimately subjugated Judah to a foreign power. Moreover, his actions encouraged the nation to follow his idolatrous example, leading to spiritual and moral decay. Walking by sight rather than faith carries grave consequences, as Ahaz's life vividly demonstrates. When we walk by sight, we rely on human strength, ignoring our Creator's omnipotence. Our visible resources become our security. Human alliances become our shelter as we dismiss the reality of divine protection. Immediate, though fleeting success becomes our validation as we neglect the eternal and unseen realities of God's power and promises. Success achieved apart from God's will can entangle us in compromise and lead us further away from God. The story of Ahaz sternly warns us against equating temporary success with divine approval. The Apostle Paul reminds us in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, 17 and 18. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. As we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. The New Testament calls us to a different way of life, as we read in 2 Corinthians 5 verse 7. Paul says, we walk by faith and not by sight. Our foundation is always God's character and promises, even when circumstances seem bleak. We are to faithfully see His unseen hand at work, shaping events for His glory and our ultimate good. In our lives, do we rely on human wisdom and resources instead of depending solely on God? Do we prioritize the visible and immediate over the eternal and unseen? The story of Ahaz urges us to turn to God with humility and faith, for He alone is our refuge and strength. If Ahaz had said to the Lord what he had said to Tiglath-Pileser, I am your servant and your son, how different his story might have been. God in His mercy still reaches out to us, even when we falter. Through Christ, Emmanuel, the Spirit of God has come to dwell with those who open their lives to Him. He invites us to walk with Him by faith. Let us not squander this immeasurable treasure in favor of the transient securities of this world. Let Ahaz's failures spur us to wholly commit ourselves to walking by faith. Let us put our trust fearlessly in the eternal promises of our faithful God. Let us build ourselves up in our most holy faith and also magnify our wonderful God before all whose eyes are on us. God bless.